switching gears here a little bit, I'd love to talk about Avengers 4 with you. Because I don't know, because we did our first podcast, I think, back in May, and we didn't really speculate on what's going to happen after this. And it's interesting because now we have Ant-Man and the Wasp that came out shitty. Okay, before we get into Avengers 4, what did you think about Ant-Man and the Wasp?
I will be honest, I haven't actually seen it yet.
You haven't seen it? Oh my God, dude.
It's like it's the first Marvel movie I haven't seen in the theater.
You haven't jumped out to go see it,
It's been a while. I want to say since phase 1, to be honest.
Yeah.
Let me see. I think phase 1 was maybe like the first Thor movie was like the last movie I didn't really see in the theater.
Yeah.
This one, I don't know. I just, like you said, I didn't feel compelled to go watch in the theaters necessarily, because part of it is I knew the story itself wasn't necessarily going to tie into what was going on at the same, within Infinity War until the post-credit scene. So once I was aware of what's going on there, then I feel like I got what I needed. But definitely, I think the movie does a good job of setting up a possible eventuality of Avengers 4, the whole quantum realm.
So I wanted to talk about that. Well, first of all, I hated Ant-Man and the Wasp. I absolutely despised it. Well, I don't want to say despised it, but like it was just the most convoluted narrative that just I didn't really latch onto at all. It was just like kind of, it was a passing fancy, and honestly, like they had some decent humor, and it was just, pretty clunky screenwriting, but beside the point. I think I know exactly how Avengers 4 is going to end. Can I share my speculations?
Of course. All right. Spoiler warnings. For the universe.
Well, I mean, we've also been spoiling DCU films left and right, so I'll put it in the title of this video, but spoilers. But okay, so do you know basically the post-credit scene of Ant-Man? What happens?
I do, yes.
Okay, but you're not going to be upset if I say it, right? Like,
I am not.
Okay, all right. So of course, Ant-Man goes into the quantum realm to get those particles or MacGuffins or whatever, and everyone else fades around him, so he's stuck in the quantum realm. Do you remember in the first Ant-Man where basically Pym says, I will never let this technology fall in the hands of a Stark? Like,
right.
Like if that happens, the fabric of reality will be, like destroyed. I think what's going to happen is it's going to operate in two fronts. So on one hand, I think, Tony Stark obviously has the opportunity to get back to Earth because Nebula has a spaceship and it can, fly back to Earth. I think what's going to happen is Tony Stark is going to save Ant-Man from the quantum realm. And basically, because Tony Stark has access to not only his technology, but also vibranium because of Wakanda,
right? I
think he's going to get Ant-Man out of the quantum realm and is going to take the Pym particle and combine it with his own technology. And I think they're either going to make some kind of armor or maybe their own gauntlet to house Infinity Stones. And with the Pym particle, I think they're going to travel through time and different realities because he can obviously do that with the Pym particle because, time travel and shit like that is actually possible when you combine the technological capabilities of Tony Stark with the Pym particle. So they're going to travel through different timelines and different universes to assemble their own Infinity Gauntlet, and they're going to use that to fight Thanos and basically reverse things. On the other hand, the whole Kree and Skrull thing is going to come into play where, the rest of the Avengers are going to be contacted by Captain Marvel. And then once she gets to Earth, she's going to bring the whole, Kree force with her. Okay. And then
they're going to the army to go against.
And then they're going to use that to fight Thanos. And that'll be the whole big action sequence. But I think that Iron Man and Ant-Man will be the kind of it's almost like a buddy cop movie. I'm imagining it's going to be like where, and I haven't seen one thing about the movie. This is just how I think that it makes sense that they're going to do it. Because I don't see any other way that Ant-Man can be involved where it actually makes sense. Because why would they have him be stuck in the quantum realm and that whole interdimensional travel thing in that movie?
Yeah, definitely. I think he's definitely going to be the catalyst for time travel. Yeah. Because we know he's going to be about time travel. We've seen the pictures.
I haven't seen any of them.
Well, there were pictures that circulated a while ago. Actually, by now, like maybe as early as a year ago, where all of the characters like Thor, Captain America were dressed in their Avengers 1 outfits. Ooh. So if you remember, like Captain America had this weird suit in the first Avengers,
spandexy,
the spangly outfit to quote Tony Stark. So he's wearing that outfit, and Thor is wearing his original Avengers outfit with, it looks different than obviously Ragnarok and beyond. So we know they're gonna travel in time at least 5-6 years to that period of time. What are they gonna do while they're there? Not sure. And Ant-Man himself is in those scenes, so definitely it's gonna be part of the like time travel is going to be a plot element.
I'm so happy that I got that right. I haven't seen one fucking picture.
Oh, good for you. You know, maybe you should be Batman. You got some good detective skills.
No. It's just, but it's just like, you know, it's deductive reasoning. I can't even speak. Reductive reasoning, where it's like, you know, fucking Ant-Man is this like, you know, useless character pretty much, but, you know, having him be kind of stuck in the quantum realm and having Tony Stark be the only other Avenger that can actually capitalize on that kind of technology, I think it's the only way that it makes sense. So, you know, I don't know if there's precedence for Tony Stark in the comics making like an armor suit.
Yes, there is.
There is.
I think it was Avengers Assemble, the cartoon, where it's actually an armor that his father created. It's called Arsenal. And I think what I thought was interesting was in Iron Man 2 they sort of alluded to something like that, where obviously Howard Stark left this video and this map thing, like this sort of miniaturized version of some type of society he wanted to create for Tony Stark, basically to find the clues later.
To find a new element, yeah.
To find a new element. I think there was an element of that within the Arsenal thing, where Howard Stark creates that suit, and basically Tony perfects it in such a way that
he can house the Infinity Stones.
He can house the Infinity Stones and actually defeats Thanos. And what's funny about that cartoon is, I believe at the end, it's actually revealed that Arsenal was Ultron. And it was weird. It was just a YouTube video I saw. I didn't see the show itself. So I don't know how that ends ultimately. But
so basically they defeat Thanos, but inadvertently they create Ultron, basically.
Yeah, or they recreate Ultron, yeah. So
Got it.
And Ultron, imagine Ultron with the Infinity.
Oh yeah, well he could destroy the universe like
exactly.
in a second. But yeah, like I think that.
But there is precedence for something like that. Yes.
All right. Well, then I mean, you know, I think that's the way it's going to be. Maybe it won't be a full suit of armor. Maybe it'll be like a vibranium gauntlet they'll make or something like that that'll be able to house it. I mean, it's presumably like. The metal that made Thor's hammer is on the same level as like something like, obviously without the magic, but is on the same level as like the durability of vibranium. So I think that like, you know, they'll do something like that.
Yeah. Well, the only other problem with that eventuality is you do have, I mean, Infinity War does have a lot of characters. Part of it is some of those characters haven't had their proper payoff just yet. So Captain America hasn't had. That was one of my only real issues with Infinity War, because like Captain America didn't really have that much of a reason to be there. No, yeah, he wasn't in there for very long. Obviously, we know who he is. He's the leader, like the sort of spiritual leader of the Avengers.
Exactly.
In a way that Tony Stark was like, you know, sort of the godfather of them.
The mastermind of it.
Mastermind. Yeah. He's the one who provides them with the technology and everything, and a sense of direction. But Captain America himself is the one who leads them in battle and all that. So. And you know the screenwriters, Marcus and McFeely, they had this interview where they said, you know what, maybe it was by design that characters such as Captain America, Black Widow didn't really have too much to do in this movie, because maybe they do have a lot to do in the future iteration. So we haven't. So Tony Stark hasn't had his moment just yet. He had some moments in the first movie, especially. It comes to an apex when Thanos does recognize him as somebody worthy of knowing, worthy of honoring. Captain America hasn't had that moment for himself. So presumably a lot of people are speculating that if defeating Thanos requires a sacrifice, then Captain America would be that guy to sacrifice. And obviously he would do it himself. It wouldn't be somebody else sacrificing him for the sake of defeating Thanos.
Well, for sure. I mean, like, that's kind of a big part of his character, where it's like, you know, so, he's the guy who will make the ultimate sacrifice, and that kind of goes along with the Avengers 1, like to lay on the wire and like, you know, let the guy crawl over you. Like,
yep, exactly.
Yeah, when he's talking that. So that actually, you know, that would be like, you know, in the first Avengers movie, he had that sentiment with Tony Stark, and you know, maybe it's a thing where like, you know, Tony wants to sacrifice himself, but Steve does it instead, where he truly is the one who's ready to make the sacrifice. For the
team. And we've seen it do that before in his origin story.
When he gets in the ice.
Well, no, that was the, you know, you have this thing about bids and payoffs. The bid was when he was training as a soldier, they threw a dummy grenade and he threw himself over that grenade to protect everybody else who was in the vicinity. So he already has this sort of selfless mentality where he would be willing to give up his life to save everyone else. So, and he did that when he crashed that plane in order for the nuclear bomb to not destroy New York City.
Yeah.
And this will be sort of on a universal scale where he would do something like that. So you do have that potential payoff to, 10 years of storytelling when it comes to Captain America. At the same time, there are characters who have a personal beef with Thanos that also needs to be dealt with, like Nebula.
Yeah, and Thor too.
I think Thor had his chance. He should have gone for the head. He didn't. So
which that was the sickest line. That
was
was
a great line.
So good. Like honestly, Josh Brolin's performance in that part was just stupid good.
Yeah, he's well done. I think because Thor had such a big part to play in the first Avengers movie, I think his part in the second one does fall below in terms of the pecking order.
Oh, for sure. I mean, like, he obviously has the most reason to kill Thanos, like, because like Thanos is the one who directly killed his best friend, his brother, destroyed all of his people, and basically he's, the last of his kind now, with the exception of like, if they bring back Loki and Heimdall.
The Valkyrie and something.
And the Valkyrie, yeah. But like, I mean, obviously, like, he had a really, really great emotional arc in the first movie, Infinity War. But
so I think he'll be more of a supporting character. Obviously, he's powerful in the sense that maybe only him and Captain Marvel can actually go to toe-to-toe against Thanos one-on-one. Because the Hulk... you also have the Hulk, He had his own sort of arc in the Avengers Infinity War where...
He had his Viagra troubles with getting the Hulk.
Exactly. So
performance issues.
But it's, tied... It's a personal thing. It's obviously not just a gimmick. Yeah, it is tied with his character.
So I wanted to ask about this, actually. We never really talked about it. Do you think the Hulk didn't come out because he was genuinely afraid of Thanos, or do you think it's just because he was the Hulk for however many years and he's sick of just like being in the
there is that. I think I've seen an interview of the directors, the Russo brothers, where they sort of alluded to the fact that the Hulk is always tired of being used as a solution. So, we have these indestructible villains that we need to destroy. Let me Hulk out and get rid of them. But then once I do get rid of them, I need to turn back into Bruce Banner. I think because the Hulk was himself for a couple of years, he was used to basically being the driving the body of the dual personalities of the Hulk and Bruce Banner.
And he's just tired, right?
And he's tired, so he doesn't want to be used as this basically this tool that you're just going to unpack when you feel it's convenient. And so the solution, based on what I've seen in terms of promotional material, again, none of this has been officially confirmed, but there may be the possibility that you will have the Hulk coexist with Bruce Banner.
Professor Hulk,
yeah. Exactly. So you have the Hulk's body, but Bruce Banner's mind and intellect.
It's the best of both worlds.
The best of both worlds. So you have to pay that off in some way. Maybe it doesn't have to do directly with Thanos, but the Hulk should have a bigger role in this movie. And I think Nebula has that personal beef with Thanos. And in the comics, you mentioned in a previous podcast, she is the one who takes the gauntlet off of his
basically hand. Thanos gives his body up to the Celestials because he wants to be like that eternal force. And while he's distracted, Nebula gets the gauntlet and wills everyone back to existence.
Basically. Right. And I think the groundwork has been laid well enough that she would earn the right to be the person who does that. Obviously, undoing what Thanos does doesn't mean destroying Thanos. So you may still require that Captain America sacrifice, or Tony Stark sacrifice, or whatever. But then Nebula gets that moment of being the one who, vindicates her sister, to be honest, and is the one who thwarts Thanos' plan and allows for everybody else to basically undo everything.
So. And I wanted to ask you this, like, obviously, like, I mean, someone's going to be brought back to life. Like, I mean, most, not all of them are going to be brought back to life.
Right.
So, do you think the sacrifice of Steve Rogers is going to be, I mean, assuming it's him, the one who sacrificed himself. It's
Should it be permanent?
Well, not only permanent, but, like, do you think it's going to have the same emotional weight where, like, let's say he sacrificed himself and, like, 40 minutes later in the movie, Nebula or whoever, maybe Tony Stark, like, is able to will everyone back to existence because they have the Infinity Stones or whatever. Do you think it's going to carry the same emotional weight as if he's like, he sacrificed himself, he's brought back to life, and he's like, okay, I'm retired, and like they all retire and stuff?
Well, Yes, I think that's a good solution.
Just the fact that like he was willing to sacrifice himself gives you the emotional payoff you need.
Like The Dark Knight Rises ended like that. So I actually, I remember the first time I saw it, I was actually bothered by the fact that I thought it was physically impossible for Bruce Wayne to have escaped that nuclear blast. Mm-hmm. But it makes sense from a character perspective that he survives. Well, he takes the ultimate sacrifice. He moves the bomb away from the city. The bomb is destroyed. It would have been, I think it makes equal amount of sense for him to have died when the bomb exploded, or for him to have survived and retired once the bomb exploded, because that was the end of his Bruce Wayne persona.
His tenure as Batman and Bruce Wayne, sure.
That was the culmination of Bruce Wayne's arc in that trilogy. Obviously, Batman as a character was going to live on through Robin's character, essentially, who's going to take up the mantle after him. Because, again, the universe must always have a Batman. The universe doesn't always need a Bruce Wayne. Obviously, he gave up all his money, all his inheritance, and he's just content being with, the love of what ends up being the love of his life, living a peaceful life, the life that Alfred always wanted him to live.
Yeah.
And Alfred is there to see the culmination of his act. Therefore, that story is over. And I think that's a very good ending to that story. And so, in this case, if Captain America does sacrifice himself and dies, it would be a good culmination of his character based on that original movie, the first Avenger, what he does in Avengers, in Winter Soldier, in Civil War, Infinity War. That would be a good culmination to Captain America, but also a good combination of Steve Rogers. So you have to kind of separate the characters in terms of symbolically what they mean.
For sure. So, I agree with that.
Whether he survives and retires or whether he dies, I think will both be good combinations of those characters.
Yeah, for sure. I agree. I mean, like, they could bring him back and people will think like it's kind of a cop-out, but I don't think so. I mean, like, we know that, Black Panther's a movie, Spider-Man is a movie. I mean, they have...
Doctor Strange.
Yeah, Doctor Strange is a movie. The Guardians of a movie, which,
I don't know about that one.
I want to talk to you about that, actually. But I think that, like, the sacrifices will pay off as a result of, them sacrificing themselves, and then they're brought back, and then they say, okay, New Avengers, I'm out of this, whatever.
Right. I think, it makes sense also for, like, Winter Soldier to take over as Captain America after he's done. They've laid the groundwork for it. Obviously, he was there from the beginning. He was Steve Rogers' friend back in the 40s. He has his fall, his literal fall and resurrection. His literal resurrection becomes who he is now. No longer, he's free from the yoke of mind control. He's no longer under Hydra. He's his own person now. So he's basically a brand new character. And so if Steve Rogers either dies or retires, it makes sense for him to be the one who carries, takes over the Captain America persona and carries it to its logical end.
Yeah, I agree.